Architecture and design were always the tools that helped people to embody certain messages. These messages usually reflected various social, political, or other changes that were influencing the world around. Since the appearance of the first corporations, the architecture was a prominent tool of their representation. The corporations always strived to establish their brand's identities to be more significant and attractive to the clients. They shaped their identities based on the current social values, and the buildings facilitated to convey these values to people. Many people describe office as the archetype of a massive and dominating building with open plan and hierarchical way of communication. Although today's workplace design tendencies are far more human-centered and progressive, many people are still surrounded by the stressful and outdated workplaces. So let's examine how this type of the workplace emerged to better understand how the modern design approaches can change it. The concept of the maximum functionalism and productiveness became a mainstream of the 20th century. When the industrialization process has been rapidly developing, the idea of the building as the machine for living or working in was extremely popular due to its relevance to those business and economic tendencies. The Taylorist concept switched focus from the workers' needs and desires to the productivity and motivation. The issue of well-being was considered just in terms of some technical facilities, such as air conditioning or lighting. Moreover, the capitalist economy caused a high competition among companies that required them to show their superiority through the languages that would be clear and tangible for the consumers, and the architecture was one of the best ways of doing it. The company's headquarters of the mid-20th century were the symbols of power through advertising and showcases of brand identity in the same time. Such approach to the corporate architecture could seem rational regarding business and economic perspective. However, while contributing to the corporation's needs, it neglected people who worked inside these buildings. The American skyscraper boom started in the 1920s and lasted until the beginning of the Great Depression. But after the Second World War, the American economy regained confidence, and so the commercial architecture did. Furthermore, the new age of the skyscraper was influenced by the most prominent European architects who had to immigrate to America during the war. The modernist way of thinking, combined with the request of the American capitalist economy, resulted in the impressive Bauhaus-inspired architecture made of steel and glass and demonstrated power as well as dominance. The Seagram building, projected by the Bauhaus architect Mies van der Rohe, was that kind of building. Mies van der Rohe emphasized that the main purpose of the architecture is to solve the total architectural problem that can be tackled by the clear structure and construction of the building. His international style was a crucial step in the architecture history that developed the universal design approaches. However, its principles were based on the idea of functionalism, which has not considered the humanistic perspective of the workplace design. The role of this generation of the skyscrapers is quite controversial. On the one hand, the most progressive architects of that time created elegant architectural solutions that were relevant to the current tendencies. On the other hand, the relevance of such kind of architecture was clear just until the end of the 20th century, when the workplace design began to be more human-centered. Today, even the best examples of the corporate skyscrapers seem to be undue or excessive. The switch from the building as the symbol of power to the consumer-focused language of architecture began in the 1990s. In that period, the Scandinavian countries started to develop the so-called Nordic model, which assumes social democracy as the most beneficial way of harmonious combination of the social and capitalistic interests. Because of that, they became the pioneers in the implementation of the modern humanistic design approaches into the workspaces. One early example is the Scandinavian Airlines headquarters located in Stockholm. It showed the new groundscaper concept that was rather focused on the creating a favorable environment which included various activities for workers than on the luxurious interiors as it used to be before. The Norwegian architect Neil Torp proposed a building with a large infrastructure inside that took into account the everyday needs. Since then, the concept of the city with cafes and gyms inside the building started to distribute. Corporations strive to satisfy their employees with a range of facilities. But can we say for sure is it a contribution to the workers' well being or is it a cause of disturbance? In my essay, I would like to explore to what extent the modern workplace design embodies the new generation values that corporations strive to convey. Um, the research the research can be based on the past, current, and possible future design tendencies and their correlation with the brand identities.